In these times, though we don't need to know the exact year, a dirty and old boat with two people in it floated on the Thames River. It was between Southwark Bridge, made of iron, and London Bridge, made of stone. The evening was turning into night. In the boat, there was a strong man with messy gray hair and a sunbrowned face. There was also a dark-haired girl who was about 19 or 20 years old. She looked like him, so it was clear that she was his daughter. The girl was rowing the boat with 2 oars, and she did it very easily. The man held the ropes that controlled the boat, but didn't really use them. His hands were loose in his waistband, and he looked around eagerly. He didn't have a fishing net, hook, or line, so he wasn't a fisherman. His boat didn't have a seat, it wasn't painted, and there were no names or tools on it. There was only an old hook and a rope. So, he wasn't a waterman either. His boat was too old and small to carry goods, so he wasn't a river carrier. He didn't have anything specific to look for, but he kept looking for something carefully. The tide had changed an hour ago, and the water was flowing down the river. The man watched the water closely. The boat moved slowly forward and sometimes backward, depending on how the man moved his head to tell his daughter what to do. The girl watched his face carefully, just like he watched the river. But there was fear or worry in her eyes. The boat was covered in dirt and mud from the river. The boat and the 2 people in it seemed to be doing something they had done many times before. The man looked wild. His hair was a mess, his brown arms were bare, and his shirt was loose. He wore an old cloth around his neck, and his chest was covered in beard and whiskers. His clothes looked like they were made from the mud on the boat. But even though he looked wild, he looked like he knew what he was doing. The girl moved her hands skillfully, but she also looked afraid, as if this was normal for her. "Keep the boat out of the strong tide, Lizzie. The water runs fast here," the man said. He trusted the girl's skill and didn't use the rudder. He kept his eyes on the moving tide. The girl also kept looking at him. Then, a bit of light from the setting sun shone into the boat. It touched a dirty stain in the boat that looked like a human shape wrapped in cloth. The light made it look like it was covered in blood. The girl saw it and shivered. "What's wrong with you?" the man asked. He noticed her shiver, even though he was focused on the water. "I don't see anything floating." The red light was gone, and the girl stopped shivering. The man looked back at the river. Everywhere the strong tide hit something, like chains, ropes, boats, or logs, the man's eyes would stop for a moment. His eyes were sharp and hungry. After a while, he suddenly pulled the ropes tight and steered the boat toward the Surrey shore. The girl always watched her father's face. She quickly understood what he wanted and moved the oars to follow him. Soon, the boat turned around sharply and shook as if someone pulled it. The man leaned forward over the back of the boat. The girl pulled the hood of her cloak over her head and face. She looked behind her, down the river, and kept the boat moving with the tide. Until now, the boat had only stayed in one place, but now they were moving quickly. The shadows were growing darker, and the lights of London Bridge were shining. On both sides of the river, there were ships. The man finally sat up and came back into the boat. His arms were wet and dirty, and he washed them in the river. He held something in his right hand, and he washed that in the river too. It was money. He made the coins make a sound, then blew on them and spat on them for good luck. After that, he put the money in his pocket. Lizzie. The girl quickly turned her face towards him. She was rowing quietly, but her face was very pale. The man had a sharp nose, and with his bright eyes and messy hair, he looked a little like a bird hunting for food. Take that thing off your face. The girl took the hood off. Give me the oars. I will row now. No, no, father. No, I really can't. Father, I can't sit so close to it. The man started to move towards her to take the oars, but when she spoke in fear, he stopped and sat down again. What harm can it do to you? None, none. But I just can't bear it. I think you hate the sight of the river. I don't like it, father. But the river gives you your life. The river gives you food and drink. The girl shivered again. She stopped rowing for a moment and looked very weak. But the man didn't notice because he was looking at something behind the boat. How can you be so ungrateful to your best friend, Lizzie? The fire that warmed you when you were a baby came from the river, next to the coal boats. The basket you slept in as a baby was washed ashore by the river. I even made the rocking chair you slept in from wood that floated in from a ship. Lizzie took her right hand off the oar and touched her lips with it. For a moment, she reached out lovingly toward her father. Then, without saying anything, she started rowing again. Just then, another boat, looking a bit better than theirs, came out from a dark spot and gently moved next to them. In luck again, Gaffer, said a man with squinting eyes, who was rowing the other boat alone. I knew you were lucky again when I saw the way your boat moved. Ah, answered the other man, dryly. So, you're out, are you? Yes, partner. Now, the soft yellow moonlight was shining on the river. The man in the second boat stayed a little behind Gaffer's boat, watching closely where it had been. I said to myself, he continued, as soon as I saw you, there's Gaffer, and he's lucky again. By George. Don't worry, partner, I didn't touch him. He said this because Gaffer had moved quickly, like he was impatient. As he spoke, the man pulled his oar out of the water and placed his hand on the side of Gaffer's boat, holding on to it. He's had enough trouble already, Gaffer. Been floating around in the tides for a long time, hasn't he, partner? It's my bad luck, you see. He must have passed me when he went up the river last time. I almost think you can smell them, partner, like a vulture. He spoke in a low voice, glancing more than once at Lizzie, who had pulled her hood back over her head. Both men then looked with strange interest at the back of Gaffer's boat. Should I take him into my boat, partner? No, said Gaffer, in such an unfriendly way that the man stared for a moment, then replied, Did you eat something that doesn't agree with you, partner? Yes, I did, said Gaffer. I've had too much of that word, partner. I'm no partner of yours. Since when are you not my partner, Gaffer Hexam Esquire? Since you were accused of stealing from a man. Stealing from a live man, Gaffer said angrily. And what if I had been accused of stealing from a dead man, Gaffer? You couldn't do it. Couldn't you, Gaffer? No. Does a dead man need money? Can a dead man even have money? What world does a dead man belong to? The other world. What world does money belong to? This world. How can money belong to a corpse? Can a corpse own it, want it, use it, ask for it, miss it? Don't mix up right and wrong like that. But stealing from a live man, that's something only a sneaky person would do. I'll tell you something. No, you won't. I'll tell you something. You were lucky to get off with just a short time in trouble for stealing from a live sailor. Be thankful for that, but don't think you can call me your partner anymore. We worked together in the past, but not now and not in the future. Let go. Let go of my boat. Gaffer, if you think you can get rid of me this way, if I don't get rid of you this way, I'll find another way. I'll hit your fingers with the stretcher or poke your head with the boat hook. Let go. Lizzie row. Row home, since you won't let your father row. Lizzie rowed faster, and the other boat fell behind. Lizzie's father, feeling proud of himself for standing up for what's right, slowly lit his pipe. He smoked and looked at what he was towing behind the boat. Sometimes, the thing he was towing jerked towards him in a scary way when the boat stopped, and sometimes it seemed like it was trying to pull away. But most of the time, it followed quietly. A beginner might think that the ripples on the water looked like tiny changes in the expression of a dead face. But Gaffer was no beginner, and he didn't think like that.